When the police finally forced open the basement door, they didn't find a normal kid. They found a phone still glowing in the dark, and a boy who didn't even blink as he stared at an empty screen. What you are about to hear is not just a gaming story. It is a chilling look at what happens when a child's mind is completely swallowed by a digital world. Meet Leo. To his classmates, he was just a quiet teenager who sat in the back row. But inside his small, cramped bedroom, a very different monster was waking up. Leo didn't play games just to have fun. He lived for the ranks, the rare skins, and most of all, the black market trading servers on Roblox, where virtual items cost real thousands of dollars. Every single day after school, Leo rushed home like a desperate addict. His backpack hit the floor, his homework stayed untouched, and his fingers locked onto the glass screen. His mother, a tired single parent working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, tried her best. She thought her son was safe inside his room. She thought he was just playing a harmless children's game, but Leo wasn't playing anymore. He was trapped, and a dangerous trap was waiting for him on a hidden server that only opened up after midnight. That's when he met the traitor. A faceless profile on a dark web-linked server offering the rarest, most expensive item in the entire game. An item that could make Leo a legend overnight. The price? The traitor didn't want money. He wanted something far worse. He wanted proof of absolute loyalty. Leo stared at the chat box. His heart pounded against his ribs. His hands began to shake. He knew what he had to do, but the thought alone should have made any human being run away. Instead, Leo smiled, a cold, empty smile, and in that single second, a brother turned against his own flesh and blood, setting off a nightmare that no one in that house would ever forget. The next evening, the darkness outside the small apartment felt heavy, almost suffocating. Inside, 8-year-old Toby, Leo's younger brother, was sitting happily on the living room rug, building block towers and laughing at a cartoon on television. To Toby, Leo was his big protector, the person he trusted more than anyone else in the world. He had no idea what was ticking inside his older brother's head. Leo sat across the room in the shadows, his eyes locked not on his brother, but on the glowing reflection in his tablet screen. The chat was blinking again. The traitor was waiting, demanding proof before handing over the rare digital items. The demand was sick, unnatural, and completely inhumane. The traitor wanted Leo to prove his loyalty by locking away his own flesh and blood, where no one could find him, leaving him out in the biting cold of the midnight alley behind their building. Leo's chest tightened, but the addiction had already eaten away at his conscience. To him, Toby wasn't a little brother anymore. He was just an obstacle, a key to unlock a digital status that meant more to him than human life. When midnight finally struck, and their mother had fallen into an exhausted, heavy sleep after her double shift, the apartment went dead silent. Leo stood up slowly from the couch, his sneakers making no sound on the floorboards. He walked over to little Toby, who rubbed his sleepy eyes and smiled up at him, whispering, "Are we playing a game, Leo?" Leo didn't answer. He grabbed a heavy winter coat, threw it over his brother, and grabbed him firmly by the arm with a grip so cold and tight that Toby let out a quiet whimpering sound. Leo dragged him out through the back door into the freezing, pitch-black night, ignoring the pleas and the quiet tears. He led him straight to the old, abandoned storage basement at the edge of the property, pushed him inside onto the freezing concrete floor, and slammed the heavy iron door shut. He turned the rusty padlock with a sharp click, sealing his brother away in the dark, and walked calmly back inside to his glowing screen. The screen flashed green as the rare item finally dropped into Leo's inventory. He sat back, breathing heavily, feeling like a god in a world that didn't matter. Hours passed in absolute silence, save for the digital clicks and his own shallow breathing. But back in the freezing, pitch-black basement, little Toby was shivering under a single thin coat, crying out for his mother and banging his small fists against the thick iron door. The cold was sinking deep into his bones, and the darkness felt like a living monster closing in. Inside the apartment, Leo was so lost in his virtual empire that he couldn't even hear the faint, muffled screams echoing through the ventilation pipes. By sunrise, The temperature outside had dropped below freezing, and Toby's cries had turned into weak, terrifying whimpers. Yet, when Leo's phone battery finally died at 7 in the morning, instead of feeling panic or guilt, a cold wave of annoyance washed over him because his gaming session had been interrupted. He stood up lazily, stretched his arms, and walked toward the kitchen as if it was just another ordinary Tuesday morning. Their mother, Nita, woke up a few minutes later, her eyes still heavy with exhaustion from her double shift, and immediately noticed that the house was too quiet. She walked into the living room, called out Toby's name, and found no answer. She checked his bedroom, searched the bathroom, and then noticed the back door was slightly cracked open, letting in a freezing gust of wind. Her heart skipped a beat as a sickening wave of dread rushed through her veins. She ran outside into the courtyard, calling for her youngest son until she heard a faint, agonizing sound coming from the old locked storage basement at the edge of the property. Nita rushed to the heavy iron door, screamed out in terror, and saw the rusty padlock hanging tightly in place. With shaking, desperate hands, she ran back inside, grabbed a heavy metal wrench from the tool drawer, and smashed it against the lock until it finally snapped open. When she pulled the heavy door wide open, the nightmare she saw inside made her drop to her knees and let out a scream so loud and horrific that it shook the entire neighborhood. The sight inside that dark, freezing room was something no mother should ever have to witness. Little Toby was curled up tight in the corner, his lips turning blue, his skin ice cold, and his tiny hands raw and bleeding from banging against the metal door all night. He was barely breathing, his eyes half closed in a semi-conscious state of hypothermia and absolute terror. Nita scooped his fragile, freezing body into her arms, crying hysterically as she screamed for someone, anyone, to help her. She carried him back into the house, wrapping him in heavy blankets, while her hands shook violently as she dialed emergency services, her voice breaking into agonizing sobs as she begged the dispatcher to hurry. Within minutes, the screeching sirens of an ambulance and police cars tore through the quiet morning air, flashing red and blue lights, casting eerie shadows across the walls of the small apartment. Paramedics rushed inside with oxygen and medical gear, immediately working on Toby to pull him back from the edge, while police officers secured the perimeter and stepped into the living room. There, sitting casually on the couch in the dim light, was Leo. He wasn't crying, he wasn't shaking. He wasn't even looking at his dying brother. He was staring blankly down at his black screen, holding his dead phone, murmuring words about his lost game level and his stolen inventory. One of the veteran police officers stepped forward, his face hardening with disgust, and slapped the handcuffs tightly onto Leo's wrists. As they dragged him out the front door, past the flashing lights and crying neighbors, Leo didn't look down or show a single ounce of remorse. His cold, empty eyes remained fixed straight ahead, completely lost to the digital void. Toby survived that night, but the physical scars healed long before the invisible. Permanent damage done to a family torn apart by a screen. It leaves us with a terrifying question that every single one of us needs to answer before it is too late. When the real world disappears and the screen takes over, are the monsters hiding outside, or are they already sitting right inside our own homes?